So this video is essentially about what I wish I knew about anxiety before trying to heal it. And so anxiety isn't just in your head. It lives in your body. And until we learn how to create safety in the body, we're never gonna find actual sustainable relief. And in Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, he talks about how over the years, especially in childhood, but all through life, when we experience situations that we perceive to be stressful, we store that in our body and we often relive that experience over and over until we've kind of cleared it from the body. And so this is something that I can really relate to. Um, Over the years, I struggled with anxiety, kind of ever since I was a kid. I never really thought about it as anxiety was a kid when I was a kid, but looking back, I can see that anxiety was definitely something that influenced my life since I was really young. And I've spent a lot of time trying to heal this anxiety, trying to manage it, trying to find relief from it. And there's been so many things that I've used, different modalities, different tools that I've tried to use that were mostly brain based. So, mostly I was trying to work from the top down. But recently, through learning more about the subject and just getting more awareness of my experience, I've started to understand this bottom up approach where you work from the body first, and the more that you work from the body, that relief starts to move up into the brain and into your experience and your perception and your thoughts and that sort of thing. And so a little bit about my story. So essentially, anxiety became a big thing for me in university. That's when it really started to peak. And it was really overwhelming for me. I didn't really know how to manage it. It impacted kind of everything, my focus in class, my relationships, my sleep, my health, and kind of just being able to feel comfortable in my own skin. It really affected that. Um, I wasn't always anxious. I was a pretty chill guy, but I and people, maybe my friends or people that knew me, they probably wouldn't think that I kind of struggled with this. But from the inside out, you saw a different perspective. I had a lot of insomnia. I couldn't get to sleep. And what I did, which is what a lot of people do, is we just cope with the tools that we've learned. And so the tools the tool that I used was weed. And so I would smoke a ton of weed. I smoked a ton of weed throughout university and years after university. And it seemed innocent at the time. It was like, this is natural. It helps me feel really good. I socialize, I can chill, I can get some sleep. But it wasn't solving the problem. It was just masking a deeper wound. And, growing up, most of us were not really taught how to listen to our body and how to recognize what it's communicating to us. The body has all of these amazing intelligent systems that are trying to keep us safe, keep us alive, and help us, be in the world. And when we have experiences that maybe are traumatizing or experiences that, you know, get in the way of the body doing its things or holding on to these things, the body's trying to let us know, hey, there's something that we need to look at and we need to kind of let this go. But most of us, we kind of just ignore those signals. And that's something that I did for so long. Um, And so, like most people, I thought anxiety was a mental issue. So, from that perspective, the tools that I used to try to find relief were mostly mental. So, meditation, affirmations, psychedelics quite a bit, exercise, diet, prayer, medication. So all of these things, I guess exercise was kind of body based, but it wasn't kind of focused on what it needed to be focused on, which was rehabilitating the nervous system and letting go of all these things that I was holding on to. Um, so these things all helped a little bit, but it didn't give me consistent relief. And slowly things got worse for me. And I'm sure that you might be able to relate to this type of situation where you're using these tools and like the ones I mentioned, and you're just not finding that sustainable relief, you know? You find a bit of relief, lasts for a bit, but you know that there's something deeper there. You know that there's more to it. And so for me, after I graduated university, I started my own company. And as I was building this company, I was, it was a lot of pressure and things got worse for me in terms of, not being able to sleep, kind of obsessive thoughts and worrying and this kind of thing. And I started to feel really fucking stuck in my business, in my emotional patterns, my nervous system. Nothing really felt stable or nothing really felt good for me. I was kind of just trying to fucking get through it, thinking that, once I reach this success, I'll find some relief. But that relief never really came for me. And so what was I missing and what are most of us missing? What are we not considering in this kind of typical picture, this kind of experience that I've just talked about, my own story? I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. And so there's something that I was missing, something that I wasn't aware of. And I wish someone had told me that essentially anxiety isn't an enemy. It's not something that we necessarily need to just get rid of. It's something that we need to listen to. It's a message from our body. Our body has this language that it speaks. It doesn't speak English like we speak. It speaks in lots of different signals. And the more we can tune into those and sit with those, and go into them, whether it's through research or just through intuition or talking to people. And, what is this trying to tell me is essentially the question that I've started to ask. Um, and so here's a nice quote by John Gabriel. Symptoms are not enemies to be destroyed, but sacred messengers who encourage us to take a closer look. And so throughout my journey, I've come to this place where now I'm starting to listen to these signals, not just the thoughts, but more the body. What is my body telling me? And since I've started to do that, everything's kind of started to shift for me. Um, and so what is the root here? And the root that I've discovered is essentially the nervous system. All of these messages, especially something like anxiety, this is a message from the nervous system. And so, what I've learned is that the nervous system has two branches, which you probably know. It has a sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, so survival mode, trying to keep us safe. And then there's the parasympathetic, rest and digest, healing, relaxation, connection. Those things happen when we're able to be in that state of parasympathetic. And so, as kids, especially for me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate, our nervous systems adapt to our environment. And if we grow up in this chaotic, stressed out environment where, our caregivers, they're not really emotionally regulated, there's so much stress, they're constantly worrying or fighting or all these things, our nervous system, that's a lot for a kid's nervous system. And so when you're a little kid and your nervous system and your intelligence, all it's trying to do is keep you safe, keep you connected, and, keep you loved. And so when you have all this stress going on, your caregivers, the most important people in your life at that time, when they're kind of stressed out, emotionally dysregulated, your nervous system is constantly tuning into that, and not just tuning into that and feeling what they're feeling, which is super stressful, but it's also constantly being aware and hyper vigilant as to, how do I need to adapt so that I get my needs met. And so this hyper vigilant state, this becomes normal for us. And it became normal for me. And it wasn't something that I became aware of, that I was in that kind of hyper vigilant state all the time until kind of recently. And unless we learn how to get back into regulation and to regulate the nervous system, um, to get out of that hypervigilant fight or flight state, we just stay stuck for some people for decades. For me, it's been a couple decades. Luckily, I'm becoming aware of this stuff and starting to really work with it and on it. But most people, they go through their whole lives in this hypervigilant, dysregulated state. And now that I've started to become aware of this stuff, I look out into the world, to the people that I'm engaging with and people in my world, and so many of them, if they had this awareness and this information and the tools to work with it, it blows my mind how much I believe it could just change their life and bring them so much peace and power. Really, it's so empowering to be able to be in that calm state and to have ways to get you into that calm state, not just smoking weed or drinking, but really sustainable, healthy tools that you can use on a daily basis to keep you in this calm, relaxed, healing, regulated state. And so there's this really cool quote by Stephen Porges. If you want to improve the world, start by making people feel safer. And I think that's amazing. And I think that's really powerful. And if there's one thing that, mission that I would have in my life is definitely not only help me feel safer, but help other people feel safer. And so, through this process, I've realized my body has just been doing its best to protect me, but the survival strategies that it learned in the past are not serving me anymore. And if you can resonate that, if you're watching this and you can resonate, it might be the same for you. And so it's an amazing realization because you realize you're not crazy or broken. You've just had a nervous system that never truly felt safe. And so, what finally helped me? So, all of the methods that I've tried, meditation, affirmations, diet, they were all super helpful. And out of the list that I mentioned earlier, the one that really gave me relief was medication. So, maybe you've been on medication, maybe you haven't, but when I was in university, I got a really bad concussion and it made my anxiety even worse than it had been. And so I went to the doctor and I'm like, yo, I need some help here. I can't manage. And so I asked, I'm like, can I have some medication? That was all I was kind of aware of what would maybe give me some relief. And so I have been on medication twice in my life. I'm not on it now. I haven't been on it for about a year and a half. Um, and although it gave me a lot of relief, it gave me a lot of stability in my life, it didn't really feel right for me. Um, I didn't want to outsource my piece to pharmaceuticals. I wanted to learn to work with my body and not just override it. Um, and although I do believe medication has a place, and if you're on medication or you're thinking about it, I'm not saying don't. I'm really happy that I used it for the few years that I did. It made a huge difference, helped me find some stability in my life and kind of arranged my life so that it was a little bit more manageable. And so for someone who, life just isn't manageable right now and the anxiety is just way out of control, I would consider medication. And it's definitely something to think about and to talk to your, medical professionals about. Um, But the missing link for me was working with my body. And there's this term that gets thrown around a lot, and you might have heard it, somatic healing. And so to me, what this means is what somatics means to me is our our experience of having a body. And so we're not just like these heads on top of a body, a brain on top of a body. We are a brain and a body. And there's this whole experience that's going on and this connection between our brain and our body. And for a lot of my life, I was kind of living in my head. I wasn't living in my body. And so somatic work for me, what it means is starting to live more in the body and creating a felt sense of safety and ease within my body. And so here's another really cool quote by Irene Leon. The issue is not the event itself, but how our nervous system perceived it. And so we go through life, especially as kids, all these crazy things happen, and our nervous system perceives it as threatening, and we stay in that state. And our body and our nervous system is holding on to that, and it's not feeling safe. And as we get older, it keeps holding on to that. And so the more that we can work with the body and help it feel safe, the better everything else gets. And the more that the other tools start to work, so these mind-based tools, whether it's affirmations, meditation, all of these things, they really become powerful when you create that sense of safety in your body. And so for me, as I've learned to work with the body and regulate my nervous system through a bunch of different somatic practices, which I'm loving and I highly recommend learning about them, what I've noticed is the thoughts become softer, my reactions kind of slow down, and things that I would be worrying about before, they just, from that felt sense of safety, you just realize, oh, shit's okay, everything's okay, I can deal with that, I can manage that. And you're not just like in this crazy reactive state. And the coolest thing is that with the subconscious reprogramming and all these mind-based techniques to help with anxiety and help belief repatterning and all this stuff, as I've created the safety in my body, those things are becoming so much more powerful, and they're really starting to sink in. And it's almost like all these years that I've been doing those practices, now that I'm creating all the safety in my body, it's like that tidal wave of momentum that I created over the years with these mind-based strategies. It's like it's just crashing into my subconscious, and it's really cool. And one of the reflections that I had as I was kind of writing what I want to talk about in this video is this sense of like my body's like, all of these things that you've been, telling me and affirming, they finally feel true. And my subconscious is like, now I can finally believe it. And so I've got this tool that I use on a daily basis to help me bring a sense of safety into my body. And whether I'm feeling anxious or not, this is something I use every day, whether before I go to bed or before a stressful situation or after a stressful situation. If I'm feeling a little bit dysregulated, this is something I use every day. And so essentially what you do is the goal is to increase your body map. So your brain constantly is trying to have a map of your body, of, where is my body in space? Where does my hands end and start? Where's my feet end and start? And if that body map gets kind of interrupted or it's not fully complete, that's stressful for us. And as kids, when we're in that chaotic environment, what I experience and what a lot of people experience is we disassociate from the body. And that's stressful for our nervous system. our nervous system wants us to be in connection with the body because we need to be listening to it and perceiving what's going on in us and around us. And when we disassociate from that and just live in our head, that even creates more stress. And so here's a quick trick or tool that you can use. And so maybe I'll do it right now. And if you're watching this and you have the ability to, you can follow along. And so what you do is you just take your socks off and you want your bare feet and you just take a soft cloth, and I'm just going to use my sock, and you just rub your foot and you close your eyes and you kind of just avert your gaze while you do it, and you just rub your foot and you kind of can just ask yourself, what does this feel like? What does this feel like? And so you just rub your foot on the bottom, get in the toes, do it for like 30 seconds. And for me, what I experience and what a lot of people experience is it's really regulating for your nervous system, especially if you've been disassociated from your body for a long time, which I have been. And so this is something that I use every day, and I totally recommend it. It might seem weird, but I love it. So maybe I'll put my sock back on. And yeah, do it on both of your feet, and you can do it on your hands too. Soft cloth, just like rub your hands. Don't look at the hand while you do it. When you're looking away, it helps kind of bring your kind of felt sense into the hand rather than just like your visual senses. And so do that with the cloth, feet and hands. It's really powerful. And so essentially with anything, if you want to create change, the first step is awareness. And so here's a couple questions that you could ask yourself if you wanted to become, more aware of your experience with anxiety and with your body. And so first question, are you letting anxiety dictate how you live and how you show up? For a lot of my life, the answer to that question for me was yes. Anxiety dictated how I lived and how I showed up. And I don't want that to be the case. And so if you first realize that that is the case for you, then that's going to be the awareness that you need to be like, okay, I don't want that to be the case. I'm going to do something about it. And so another question that you can ask is, can you remember a time when you felt safe in your body? When I think back, there's a few powerful moments in my life where I felt really safe. One of them was when I was on a mushroom trip and I just felt the most peace that I've ever felt. And the way that I connected with people and showed up in that moment of safety was so powerful and so life-changing. And if I can create that more and more in my life, it would be so powerful, I believe. And then a last question you can ask yourself is, what if anxiety isn't a flaw, but your body's way of asking for connection? And so anxiety is often our body saying, hey, something's out of alignment in our life. We need to figure something out. We need to look at something. We need to either accept something or change something or remove ourselves from something. And if we're not listening to anxiety, we're not listening to these signals, we're going to ignore what we need to do to come back into alignment. And so I want to end this video with a poem that I wrote with the help of ChatGPT. The language of safety. I searched for peace in words and wind, in mantras, pills, and places within. I silenced thought, I chased the light, but still my chest stayed clenched at night. I learned at last it wasn't thought that held the fear in my body. The mind can lie, can run, can flee, but the body speaks what's true for me. It trembled not to scare or shame, but begged for me to break the game of pushing through, of faking fine, of treating wounds like faulty lines. It whispered, slow, it murmured, breathe. You don't need more, you need to leave. The war, the noise, the lack, the lie of lack. Come home to me, I'll guide you back. And now I move, one step, then rest. I've made my rhythm slowness blessed. For healing isn't racing time, it's trusting what was always mine. Maybe maybe you can resonate with that. When I wrote that with ChatGPT, kind of summarizing my experience into this poem, it was like, damn, kind of hit a chord. Um, and so, yeah, final thoughts. Finding real relief from anxiety and the sense of overwhelm and unease in your body, it's not only possible, but you deserve it. And so you deserve to feel safe, you deserve to feel regulated, and to know that your body isn't your enemy, it's your partner in healing. And the last quote I want to share by Aksha Dubey: healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. If this video or this message resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what landed, or if you have any questions and you want some more clarity. And if you did like this video and you want to see more of what I start creating, like the video, subscribe to it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.